Hey listeners, quick question. Do you know what extraterrestrial radio signals and a mushroom from Texas have in common? Or what a number station is and why it's so haunting and creepy? If you're intrigued by those questions, Midnight Facts for Insomniacs has the answers.
Join us, Duncan and Shane, hosts, comedians, and best friends on hilarious deep dives into obscure facts from science, history, and pop culture.
So whether you're nocturnal or just a fan of laughing and learning, we'll keep you entertained. Find Midnight Facts for Insomniacs wherever you're listening to this show.
It's funny because, I have like a thing that I forget if you or Melissa gave this to me, probably both. But like it's like a fidget toy because I get really fidgety and I'll start playing with stuff that is sounds. But I'm like, well, Daniel doesn't fidget. Yeah, you do. You're fiddling with all the knobs the whole time.
I get all my fidgeting. Well, look, when I do it, it's called engineering.
Can you move closer? I know you're mid-sentence and you're really like in the groove, but can you move closer? Talk louder.
Can you fidget a little bit harder right now?
The people don't know this. I record on a twister board and you're just spinning. Like, can you put like right hand on blue?
I make you record on that twister board because you look so good in those Bermuda shorts, and we don't have an HR department, so I can say that sort of thing.
Yeah.
We fidgeted the HR department right out of here.
They can't play twister.
No,
they lose.
It's like garlic to a vampire. They can't. There's so many problems with twister in the workplace that the HR department just won't come near us.
They won't come near us, yeah.
Have you seen the ads? And this isn't an ad. I swear this isn't an ad, but have you seen the ads for like, they advertise them on, let's just say Better Podcasts, where it's like, do you need an HR department, but your company's too small to afford one? Call this number. And it's like Uber for HR departments. It's basically like,
oh my God.
Did you sexually harass one of your employees?
Dude, call them. I want to discriminate them right now. That's really ridiculous. To rent to HR?
Yeah.
Okay. That's sad.
It's HR need her. HR need her. In reference to the Alien franchise, which has a new show coming out this summer, which is what we are in. Welcome to the summer of LA Meekly.
We're both in shorts.
Yeah, we're both in shorts. Mine
very long.
Are shorts for like really tall people, though, so they go to my ankles.
Yeah, you got Cholo shorts on.
It's somewhere between Cholo and Kevin Smith. That's the temperature right now.
New Jersey Cholo.
Yeah, that's
just Kevin Smith.
My weather app, New Jersey Cholo. That's what my weather app says. It goes from a scale of basketball player in the 70s.
Jack Tripper from Three's Company. That's the show you should be watching, is Three's Company.
No. Oh, that's a good idea. I'm looking for a new show to watch. But anyway, this is the city's only active, dedicated exclusively to Los Angeles history podcast.
Hosted by two men of our exact height.
Yeah, of our exact degree of cholositude.
And we took the test. It cost $300, but we found our exact number.
Yeah, I had to give them a swab from the inside of my Cheech and Chong album. You know what I found out? Melissa's grandma was
Cheech and Chong.
Melissa's grandma is Chong. Melissa's grandma is was really into Cheech and Chong.
Really?
This woman from like the 30s.
Oh my God.
God!
My grandma and her grandma would have got along because I think my grandma's favorite comedy was Up in Smoke.
Really?
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that makes
I knew your grandma.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah,
she's in a better place.
It works now, doesn't it? At her celebration, her life celebration, I almost told that story for everybody. I thought,
can you tell it right now for anyone? I think we tell this like once a year.
But this
will be the tribute to your grandma.
Yeah, it will be. Yeah,
sadly passed away recently.
She was she lived with us basically her whole life, and then we have relatives in. I almost said Florida. Jesus,
Florida West.
Yeah, Florida West. Yeah, Maui. We have relatives in Maui. So she decided she wanted to go live over there with them. So she leaves. She goes to Maui, and my cousin, who's very funny, makes a Facebook post that's like, "I'm sad to see her go. I wish I had more time with her, but she's in a better place." Just meaning Maui. And the flood of activity that he received.
Really funny.
Really funny. That's really funny.
He's the boy who cried paradise. Was the family that you have in Maui, was it Lilo and Stitch?
I'm not allowed to say on there, but
Oh, no, wait, Greg, it wasn't family. Was it Ohana? Did you have Ohana in Maui?
that I have to answer though. You entrapped me. Sorry. I do have Ohana in Maui.
We will start this show eventually, but
No, it's okay. Wait till you hear my research. No, you're gonna want preamble.
I've become obsessed with Lilo and Stitch. I'd never seen it, and I become obsessed with it. But we also have become obsessed with the idea of Stitch speaking English, and like how it's like, oh, he's so cute, and he has like the most horrific monster voice.
Yeah, it's really
pretty funny,
adorable.
And you're like, oh, he's so cute. Ohana means family. Oh,
it's like the Predator has a little brother, and it's Stitch. He's like a rehabilitated gremlin. I come for love. Oh, all right, pal. Put the knife down. There's a moment.
Don't get me wet.
I think he wants to get wet. There's a moment in the end. I don't know if I haven't seen the live action. You saw the live action first, and then you went back.
I did, and I was like,
so
this is great. What's the fuss about? All right, so let's talk about the actual show. Okay, so this is an LA history podcast.
Yes.
This is Daniel Zafran.
This is Greg Gonzalez.
This is Daniel Ohana Zafran.
This is Greg Gremlin Gonzalez. Not rehabilitated. I'm one of the worst ones.
This is Greg Leroy. I know there's a sequel called Leroy and Stitch.
That's funny.
I got to get into it. But so this is where we talk about Los Angeles history.
It's very
but before
true.
we get into something we did last month, which is how we start the show,
Yes.
we have 1.5 new patrons to welcome.
What's that mean? A baby?
It's Stitch.
Stitch subscribes?
I like to support creators.
I thought this was Ellie in a minute.
Let's get into it.
Which is an exact impression. Okay, so first off, we have...
Yes.
This isn't a new patron, but an upgrading
Whoa, got
patron.
upgraded. Who did it?
Who did it?
Who did it?
Who did this? This is Warren Lee.
Hi, Warren Lee. Thank you for
Warren Lee, thank you for upgrading.
upping the ante.
Yeah. The
Now it's
stakes
time to call.
are higher than ever. Yeah. You know that deal you made? We get your firstborn. You shouldn't have upped the ante. We also get your auntie. She's in a better place. Your Ohana's mine.
Your Ohana's mine now. Sign this.
We have your Ohana. So that's Warren Lee. Okay, but then we have a brand new patron.
Whoa.
And her name is Annie Partridge.
Hi, Annie Partridge. And I hear that you like to drink tea.
I hear that you are part of a certain island that may not have Ohana. It's an island to the east of us.
Unless Ohana's an Irish last name.
Yeah. O apostrophe Hana. Mallory Ohana. But Annie Partridge, her donation is listed in pounds.
Whoa.
So I guess we shouldn't say hello. We should say hello.
You say goodbye.
I say aloha. Aloha.
Aloha.
Every time I do it, Phantom freaks out. But yeah, so
Good, that keeps someone alert.
I'm curious to find out what the story is there
Yeah.
with Annie, why we have a British person, why we would dare have a British person listen.
You don't know this about, I don't know if you know this about America, but if you match something, it has to be pound for pound. So it has to be what our weight is cumulatively, which I weigh 100 pounds. Daniel weighs 300 pounds.
Oh no, I'm 4 stones.
Well, I'm 3 heads piled up because I'm animation tips. I don't know.
Then that's the end of this segment. If you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. So you too can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/LA Meekly.
True.
You could support the show. So for $5 a month, we'll send you a handwritten postcard from somewhere in Los Angeles every single month.
Mm-hmm.
But for the $1 level or for any level, just for joining, you get a free, not free, you paid for it.
Oh,
But you will get an official LA Meekly sticker. So
true.
we have got an LA Meekly sticker almost on its way to jolly old
it's going to get
Maui.
the big stamp on it.
Yeah, it's gonna you can't even read the sticker. It's gonna say customs inspected.
Yeah, they're gonna black out the title of the podcast and it's gonna be redacted.
Which happens on so many postcards.
Oh my God.
Because like they put like a strip at the bottom
Yeah, they do.
sometimes on the front, and it's like greetings from
Yeah.
USPS number 475.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great Patreon. Is the post office Patreon?
I mean, we pretty much are we're keeping the post office in business.
Single-handed.
And they need it now more than ever. So before we get into the July episode,
Yes.
Greg, what is something we have talked for so long about all other places that aren't Los Angeles. What is something you did in the month of June in Los Angeles?
In the month of June.
I will not accept again that you took surfing lessons at Pismo Beach.
But I'm so good at it. Ohana means surfing.
Ohana means wipeout.
whoa, wipeout. Last week, I did something that counts as both
A crime and a misdemeanor.
a crime. Some would call it a misdemeanor. Something that counts for this podcast and something counts for the other podcast. I went to Jack's Candy Wholesale in downtown, on Central Avenue.
Wonderful.
Open to the public. It's like Costco, but not boring.
It's like Costco, but food I like eating. I wanted to ask you about this.
Yes.
So what do they have in there exactly?
Sit around, gather around, children. I'll tell you a tale.
Oh, by the way, Greg, left hand on purple. You just knocked your microphone.
Oh, crap. Oh, hold on.
Turn it. There you go.
And he doesn't want us to have wireless headsets. I got my stinky little butthole on yellow. Left foot yellow. My butthole's
Rectum on
yellow.
yellow.
Rectum on yellow. It's great. I can't even describe it to you.
We'll try.
Okay.
It's
candy in a bag, and the bag is big.
Candy in the bag. The bag's
bag
real
is big. They're my favorite Beastie Boys song.
But do they sell also? So is it like name brand stuff, or is it just kind of like pinata filler sort of
both.
thing? Okay.
Both. And when you walk in, there's a lot of pinata fillers. And I was driving through the district where they sell a lot of pinatas, and they have a lot of ice pinatas now, and it's splendid. And I don't mean solid ice. I mean solid water. I mean the pho in Antifa.
I mean the pho.
Pho.
And I don't mean the stuff that melts and turns into pho and soup.
Oh my God, they should start a revolutionary pho restaurant called Antifa. Go ahead.
If there isn't already, I'm disappointed in the Vietnamese community.
Yeah, they have name brand candies. They have...
But do they sell do they have obscure things, or is it all just like, here's a bunch of Snickers?
No. It's pretty obscure. There's some that are like nameless too. Like, I got my coworkers were the ones that were
and they're floating in the toilet?
Yeah, I don't know. It says don't eat, not candy. And I thought, yeah, right, bro. I did the last time I listened to a sign.
Donut eat? Candy? I'm donut?
Am I that? I'm a big fatso who eats donuts. Yeah, so they have like my coworkers wanted blue raspberry belts, among many other things. I can only get two things. And then they had one of them wanted a big bag of strawberry banana gummy bears.
Wow,
that are coated white.
Very specific.
Very specific. And they have like gummy bears of so many different flavors. But they'll have like big bulk bags of kind of nameless, like no brand candy. And then they also have like branded candy, and they also have like fun party stuff.
Okay.
It's like, and then like snacks too. They have like Japanese peanuts and stuff.
I like those.
Big bag.
Bigger than Japan itself. But do they have like, can you buy just like, if they have some obscure candy, say for like a candy review podcast called Candy is Dandy, hosted by us and one other person that you should all listen to.
Yeah, sure.
Anywhere you get your podcast, Candy is Dandy, the Candy
Ohana
Review
means
podcast.
candy,
I like candy.
Not now, stay in the bag. We're like sneaking you into the airport.
But can you get just like a candy bar, or do you have to buy it in bulk if it's,
I'm trying to remember when I was leaving, if they had, I think they had impulse candy, regular
as the
candy
security
bars.
was chasing you out.
Exactly, yeah. I think that they have that on the way out, but a majority of their business is bulk candy.
Okay, because like when you go to one of those ice cream truck supply places, you can say like, can I just get one of, maybe not the candies, but like the ice creams.
Kind of like when you buy a 6-pack, but you just want one, so you just let you crack open a thing and take one. You want to do that with a handful of gummy bears, huh?
Yeah, that's what. Can I just get a taste?
Before I buy this $26 bag,
can I just like put my dirty hands in it first?
You and a certain other podcast, or for that other podcast, we should all go. Field trip.
I've always wanted to go there, and especially now.
Yeah.
Now that there's a wonderful podcast in the world called Candy is Dandy.
Especially now in trying times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of trying times,
you want
to talk about my thing of the month?
Yeah.
You remember those pinatas you were talking about?
I don't mean solid water. Go ahead.
So this is again like how we had to address the fires.
Mm-hmm. This is like a social fire. And it's sweeping across the Southland.
The Constitution caught on fire and it spread across the entire country. Well, I was thinking, a few people pointed out that a few months ago I talked about Papa Christos, and then after the episode comes out, Papa Christos is closing.
Yeah.
And then I talked about Brian Wilson, and after the episode comes out, Brian Wilson dies. So I think we should talk about Donald Trump right now.
We should talk about Stephen Miller first. That's like killing a Horcrux of Donald Trump.
Yeah, we have to kill the 7 others.
Yeah, with the kill. Yeah, with the kill 7.
Kill? What do you? We're not killing.
No, it's
We're
an
not killing
acronym for kiss in legal.
Kiss in legal.
Lamination.
Legal.
Lactate. No.
Legal law.
Legal
Kiss
law.
in legal law.
Creative license.
This is all for parody. That was actually Stitch talking.
I want to assassinate.
Stitch.
You don't even know what that means.
You don't know. Ohana doesn't mean assassinate, Stitch.
Yeah, Franz Ferdinand. Go ahead.
I was trying to think of like how to bring this up because they had the protest, the big protest, and I went to one of the ones in the valley.
Yeah.
And it was great, and there were a ton of people, and it was all positive. But like I told you, the whole time I was thinking like, this doesn't matter. Like everyone here is on the same page, and the people who aren't on the same page are not listening or don't care. And the politicians obviously facilitated this happening on both sides. And I was just thinking about, to talk about this to people living in LA is meaningless. So this is kind of more addressed to the people who listen to us who don't live in LA,
right?
Like the person in England.
Hi,
Mallory Ohana. But it's for people who don't really know what's going on, because there's been that's part of the problem. There's been so many lies and so much confusion about what's been happening. So ICE, the immigration control, started just rounding. They invaded Los Angeles and were just rounding up random people. Not random, let's just say people who don't look white. And regardless of, obviously it is not legal. It's still happening. Legal.
They are also, we should address optically how terrifying it is to have a masked person armed with bulletproof vests and no identification marks.
Well, that's
rounding people up.
That's part. So to address to the people not living in LA, because I think obviously the government is trying to spin this of like LA's out of control. That's why they had to send in 4,000 National Guard troops and the Marines.
People were asking me like, is everything safe in the riots downtown? I'm like, it's like 2 blocks.
Yeah. It was nothing crazy. It was no crazier than any other, than the Lakers winning a championship.
Yeah.
It was no crazier than that. And then the president, of course, wanted to make it seem like lawlessness. I need to destroy America now.
Yeah.
So that's not what's happening. For those who aren't aware, it's ridiculous.
I was literally in downtown during one of the protests, like one of the more fire, like maybe the second day of the protest. I was at,
you lit the Waymo on fire. I lit the Waymo on fire.
My favorite Bruce Springsteen song. I saw that and immediately thought of the Simpsons gag where a robot comes out of a burning building. Like, why was that programmed to feel pain? I was in downtown. I was like at the Mayan Theater, like midday on a Saturday. That Saturday when people were protesting, and I was like, well, this is fine. Like you wouldn't know that there was a protest happening a mile away.
It was really, as always, it was the LAPD just going nuts and brutalizing people. I mean, I'm sure there were people doing bad things, but like nothing to warrant, as it always isn't, nothing to warrant the responance that the LAPD gave. And then to call in the National Guard and then call in the Marines is absolutely insane and illegal.
Illegal, unnecessary, just optics.
Yeah.
Just
it's all the same scapegoating, fear mongering that the government is doing.
Yeah.
But also, like I was talking about when the fires were happening, of where I couldn't get straight answers of what was happening.
Yeah.
Because for that, I didn't have I had no electricity. Twitter is no longer trustworthy. Blue Sky isn't trustworthy enough.
Yeah.
And then Reddit is just like people posting like, I saw ice here. And then 2 minutes later, oh, actually, it was just tinted windows on a car.
Yeah.
And like none of this stuff is fact checked, and people are just spreading fear and confusion.
Yeah. You're trying to have a conversation at a club. That's what Reddit is. What? Why? What?
And this is the first time any of these people have ever left their houses. That's what Reddit is.
Yeah.
But it's just, all it is spreading fear, because like people are now scared to leave their houses.
Yeah, no, people are scared to leave their houses, and rightfully so too, because people are getting abducted in Walmarts and their families are being left out. Like dad, I think today I read, I don't even know how accurate it is, but like a dad was pulled away from his family and abducted by ICE, and his daughters were just left behind.
It's just horrible.
Yeah.
Like there's neighborhoods now that are noticeably less busy.
Yeah.
Speaking of ice cream supply warehouses, I tried to go to one in Sun Valley the other day. It was closed. Like people are just not going in because these are like, they're just targeting, and not just Latino people.
Yeah.
Like it's mostly Latino people, but they're targeting Asian people. They're targeting Middle Eastern people. They're just grabbing people. I have a coworker from Iran she said she's afraid to go to the mall. There's an event going on by my work this weekend. And I heard people saying like, I don't really want to be in a public place right now. And it's
terrifying.
It's like, I can't even think about it.
Yeah.
Like this is the first time I've really talked about it because I can't even think about it. It's so scary and horrible.
It's scary. It's really frustrating. Like I hear a lot of stories. I don't know how accurate they are, but like people like full American citizens are being put into vans and driven away.
I know that people are already starting to be released.
Yeah.
Because like these are citizens.
Yeah.
And also, am I wrong in not caring that somebody's here illegally? Who cares?
Yeah, I don't care.
Well, like what unless it's like this escaped serial killer of what maybe there's one in the entire country.
Sure.
Like I don't care. Like these people are working harder and have worked harder to be Americans than you and I certainly have. I have done nothing to be an American. I wipe my little bitty butt with the American flag every single day. I don't care. Like they're not hurting anybody. They're only helping people, and they're trying to be here legally.
They're trying to be here legally, and they're part of the fabric of the city already, which has been this way for like hundreds of years.
It's crazy.
It's the fabric not only of the country and what the country is built on, it's also what this city, Los Angeles, is built on that.
So that brings me to another point before I get to what I'm actually here to talk about. There's been so much talking out of both sides of people's mouths from a lot of politicians who, like, for example, to call out Casa Vega, the restaurant, they have a big sign right now saying like, Los Angeles was built by immigrants. You guys were pushing hard for Rick Caruso, who would have opened up the floodgates. You guys are always talking about, we need more cops. The cops are the ones brutalizing all the protesters. All these people, like, you can't have it both ways. Like, stand up for immigrants. Don't just do it when it seems fashionable. It's really just, I'm disgusted by a lot of things right now.
Good,
but
you should be.
To bring it to what my actual thing of the month is, everybody seems to be lying. So when the whole world is just lying, the only thing we have is knowledge. Knowledge, actual truth. And where that comes from is the Los Angeles Public Library.
You wouldn't think it.
You wouldn't think it, the home of just pornography and overdoses, but they have some information in there too. The thing I want to mention is lapl.org/newamerican/know your rights. So they have it on the front page right now of their website in English and Spanish. It has videos explaining your rights in the current situation. You can print out those red cards that you can carry that say like, I don't have to talk to you. You can't do this. And also you can make appointments on there with the library's New Americans initiative to get you on your path to citizenship. There's links and phone numbers to find out information on people who have been detained by ICE, phone numbers for the Southern California Rapid Response Network and the Immigration Defenders Law Center to call if you know someone who has been illegally detained by ICE. So that's lapl.org/newamerican/know your rights. And I don't know what's happening. I don't understand. To everybody not from America, this is not America anymore. This is absolutely horrible.
Yeah, something real. There's a big shift happening, and every day it feels like it's getting worse. And it's been a very long time since it felt like the two sides were moving closer together.
Yeah.
And I don't want the other side to move closer to me, actually. Now that I say that out loud. Yeah. And, just to put one more pin in this thing, there's all these, a lot of people who pretend like they're in the middle, like to say that our side of the argument has deported just as many people. And that's probably true. I'm not going to argue with that, but they didn't make it part of their rhetoric. It wasn't part of like a rally cry. And it also like, they didn't have like ICE driving around with what I imagine to be Proud Boys. Picking people off the street.
That's from what, I don't know what's true anymore, but it seems like they're just basically hiring bounty hunters to do this. And I'm not talking about the cool ones who live in a junkyard in Star Wars.
Yeah, we're not talking about Dog.
Yeah, this is an IG-88 coming through. I would like that, but we'd all be screwed. Yeah. But it's just, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I want this to end. I don't know.
I don't know, man. It sucks. It's really bad. Every day is worse.
Like it's scary. It's scary. It's scary.
Yeah.
And then to be selfish about it, of thinking like, well, who are they coming for next?
Yeah.
Like they're not targeting me right now.
Yeah.
I still care about it a lot.
Yeah.
But like at what point, like who are they going to come after next time as they continue to chip away at the Constitution?
When is it going to escalate? I feel like escalation. We're on the cusp of an escalation point where something's going to happen.
When you make people feel like they're threatened every single day, there's going to be confrontations.
There's going to be confrontations, and there's been a lot of video confrontations of people stepping up to these masked, potentially ICE agents. But like, I feel like any day now, blood's going to be drawn, and then it's going to be the two sides at physical confrontations.
Yeah.
That's what
I don't
feel
want
like it's coming.
that.
Yeah, I don't want that either.
Like, who wants that?
No.
And I haven't even been contacted about a revolution. Like, I don't know where am I supposed
No one
to
even
go.
asked me what side I'm on.
Yeah, when I was at that protest, no one asked me what side I was
come on.
Well, look, we're already a half hour in, and this is going to be a long one
Can
already.
we just wrap it up?
That's just tough. You know what? This is the history
This is
of
tough
ISIL.
talk.
This is
with Stitch.
this is Tough Talk with Leroy and Stitch. So let's get into the actual episode, which also is a little political.
A little bit.
Because what are we? You decided to do this because we were thinking of like, Fourth
you
of
wanted-
July's coming up.
Yeah, you want to do 4th of July's coming up. Happy birthday, America. You've done nothing wrong.
As we tell you every year.
Yeah, you've done nothing.
So you wanted to celebrate this.
I wanted to raise
perfect-
the flag and salute to it.
So the way I interpreted it as you wanted to talk about like a distinctly American industry that happened in Los Angeles.
Yes.
And then after at least I was well into the research, this industry did something almost unspeakably horrible in another country. Not these, well, maybe these companies, I don't know, but we're talking about the aerospace industry. This episode, which is along with oil and show business, is like what and oranges,
and oranges,
like the fourth big industry in LA.
Yeah, it's one of the unspoken like Mount Rushmores of what the city is built on.
One is just an orange on Mount Rushmore, and then
I thought that was a grapefruit, but whatever.
And then it's Clark Gable, the face of Hollywood, and then it's for oil, it's that really drippy guy from Nightmare Before Christmas.
Right.
He's like kind of made of oil.
Yeah.
And then for this one, it's Howard Hughes' urine jar. That's the Mount Rushmore of Los Angeles.
And it's not rock. It is an actual
the last two are
art
liquid.
installation. Yeah. The last two are liquid. Yeah.
So we're going to be talking about two of the biggest air. I keep wanting to say aerospace, but it wasn't always aerospace. At first, it was just air.
And then space. For me, some space.
So we're talking about two of the, I guess the two biggest ones, really.
I mean, to me,
certainly the two biggest homegrown ones in Los Angeles.
Yes.
So, Greg, tell us what you're talking about.
Today, I'm going to be covering a man named Donald Douglas. And if that name doesn't sound familiar, it's okay. You're probably familiar with this company, Douglas Aircraft Co.
I thought you were going to say, you're probably familiar with his cousin, Donald Duck.
Son of Michael Douglas. Donald Douglas was born in Brooklyn in 1892.
What you talking about? Forget about it. Where Brooklyn at? Sorry.
He's been Shut up. He was born in Brooklyn in 1892. His father, Bill, had given Donald a love for ships and the sea, much like Donald Duck. Hoping his son... Yeah.
Is he modeled? He might be modeled after this guy.
Oh, I didn't think about that. Yeah. Hoping his son would get an itch for the Navy. It worked. At the age of 17, he joined the Naval Academy at Annapolis.
Did this guy wear pants very often?
Honestly, 1892, I don't even think they had. I think they were still in togas in 1892. American toga. Stay away from me.
Wrap around on me.
About 5 years before this, though, before he went to the Naval Academy, something monumental in the history of mankind occurred. And it occurred in Kill Devil Hills. Kill Devil Hills. I wrote Kill Devil Hills
Kills
here.
is an acronym.
Yeah.
There's a parody.
Yeah, parody. Kill Devil Hills in North Carolina in December of 1903.
North Carolina, what happened?
Two brothers, Wilbur and Orville Wright, successfully controlled a sustained flight in a flying machine, laughing in the face of the gods.
Wow.
Come get me now.
And where are they now? They're having their liver picked out by a raven in hell forever.
In one single event, birds everywhere lost their magic, and it turned out clouds didn't taste like anything. Kind of a bummer. We all thought on us, land-bound people. I bet it tastes like something.
Acid rain.
Acid rain. People in Machu Picchu, they knew. They knew what clouds taste like. The world was put into a frenzy. At some point between 1903 and 1912, young Donald Douglas managed to catch sight of a flying machine when Orville Wright demonstrated his creation in Fort Myer, Virginia.
So this guy saw one of the Wright brothers themselves?
No, he was demonstrating later.
Oh, okay. Wait. But like, was it a Wright brother? Or
it was a Wright brother, and he was using a flying machine. It just wasn't. He didn't. What was Kitty Hawk? Was the first one?
I think so.
Yeah, he wasn't there for Kitty Hawk. If the Arlington, Virginia website is correct, then this demonstration was in September of 1908. So that's when he saw Orville Wright in a flying machine. Was like, that's for me. Wow. I'm that. That's me
like
now.
Seeing Alexander Graham Bell using a phone.
Yeah, I mean, like, oh, who's this?
Mary had a little. What?
What's a refrigerator?
Am I what?
Do I like that? Do I like that?
Oh, Mary. Watson, you know what I like.
Hold on. Is Mom here?
Is my what running?
So while he long loved the Navy because his dad told him to, watching man steal fire from the gods was a new hip thing in town. So in 1912, at the age of 20, Don Douglas quit the Naval Academy to pursue aviation at MIT, Massachusetts State Institute of Technology, or in technology. He was able to graduate in 2 years with a bachelor's, and that was followed by a series of small jobs in the aviation industry. One of the first jobs was to design a dirigible for the Connecticut Aircraft Company, but Don left the company before the first flight, which turned out to be a failure anyways.
Was it the Hindenburg?
They didn't want to write it down, but I looked it up, and it was actually the Hindenburg. One of the bigger projects that Douglas found himself working on was as an assistant to engineer Jerome Hunsaker at MIT in building the first wind tunnel, which you don't know was used. It's like a big tunnel used to produce a stream of air that simulates the movements of like flying through air for when they're working on a project and they want to like see how it'll handle.
They used to have one of those at City Walk.
They turned into like 5 escalators now.
So this guy is like a legitimate like MIT, but like I'm talking about, this is like a smart guy.
Oh yeah,
because
the other guy's a rich hillbilly.
Yeah, for mine, he is not. He's got street smarts, but he's not a smart guy.
No, yours is a fascinating guy, and I love hearing about him. I especially love Karina Longworth talking about him. But he's like all of the things at once. He's like a sophisticated Clark Gable. He's a hillbilly.
Yeah. He's rich as hell.
He's Batman.
He's a Beverly Hills Billy.
He's Batman. He's kind of Iron Man. All right.
I kept thinking of like, is this Elon Musk when talking about my guy? But like your person is a legitimate scientist who founded a smart company.
Yeah, he's like a smart guy. He's like one of the best designers of the 20th century.
Yeah, he had that lisp though. He was friends with a mouse. I don't know.
Kind of got mad a lot. Like mad a lot.
Short fuse.
Short fuse. Yeah.
Almost as short as his pants.
Shirt long, pants none. Hat, suicide. So in 1917, Douglas found his way to Glenn Martin Company, one of the pioneers of aviation. Douglas served as chief engineer there, designing the Martin GMB bomber, which was the first American-built large bomber biplane. So during World War I, what were we going to say?
I was just going to say, like, a lot of these accomplishments for both of these companies are like, and then they built a thing that killed this many Vietnamese people. Like a lot of these are war profiteers at the end of the day, and it's kind of
upsetting.
We're not endorsing that. Like, it's interesting and it's like a big part of the history, but it's also like, I don't like bombs.
The kind of Jack Parsons thing of it's really interesting.
I endorse everything he's in.
Anything he's done inside of a house is great. With like 80 of his friends. Like the technology they helped create could be used for many things.
It's Oppenheimer all over
Oppenheimer.
Again. But again, like if you're building a bomb.
If Parsons had an Oppenheimer.
He had that TV show.
He did have
But yeah, Christopher Nolan, make Parsons now.
You should try to make Parsons.
And starring Jim Parsons. You are going to mess with our heads, Christopher. I am Bazinga of universes.
I was gonna. The last word I said was going to be Bazinga. I am Death Destroyer of Bazinga. I am Bazinga, Destroyer of Worlds. That's what I was trying to get at. Sorry, I wasted a full minute of your time. So he designed this bomber, which was, like I said, the first American-built large bomber plane. During World War I, the American Army flew European-built bomber planes. So once the war was, we were pretty deep in the war, the Army contracted Glenn Martin to design an American one. Don Douglas was the designer that Glenn Martin tapped to do the job. Its first flight was on August 17th, 1918. And then tragedy struck in November of 1918 when World War I ended and the production of the GM bombers halted just after 10 planes were made.
Oh, boo-hoo.
Oh, if only the armistice wasn't signed on that railroad car.
Can we start another one in like 20 years? Yeah, we started it.
Yeah, we started
America
it.
started
Yeah.
That's also part of the problem with America right now. But like these companies make things for war. So when there isn't war, they can't make money. So
my next
we need
sentence
war.
is, it said that once war was over, 90% of aviation companies quit business. Don't worry, America. The military industrial complex is just a few decades away. Yeah, exactly. We're always doing really good. Everyone has a job when we're at war.
Yeah, except in the other country.
Except in the other country. By 1919, Don was married with a couple of boys of his own living in Cleveland. Now, it's said that during the war times, Cleveland had a bad fuel shortage and many dwellings struggled to stay warm during the winter. Ohio. One day... Ohana means Ohio. One day, his wife opened up the oven to find that it was covered in frost. Okay. So his wife decided to ditch the Midwest winter and head to California while her husband stayed at Glen Martin.
Just turn the oven on. Get rid of the frost.
Duh. Like, literally duh.
I guess she didn't go to MIT.
Months later, when Don joined his family in Los Angeles, the idea of leaving Glen Martin and the whole side of that whole side of the country had already kind of been percolating. But once he got here to Los Angeles, he decided that a winter of 70 degrees sounded just fine. Just great.
Don't tell him about summer.
Yeah. Oh no, 75. And with the war being over, Douglas wanted to pursue commercial air travel, which was like just a brand new concept. Air travel was entirely utilitarian. I mean, I guess it's still utilitarian, but it was never like...
No, it's for pleasure.
It's purely for pleasure.
It's a really good experience.
You're like that girl in 1941. She wants to hump a plane. Opening his own company turned out to be difficult because as established as he was, he couldn't get a loan to start an aviation company. He's just one guy. It was too niche a field for one man, no matter how experienced, to start his own company. So he asked for help from a former coworker who now wrote for the LA Times as a sports writer, Bill Henry, not Buck Henry, Bill Henry, to keep an eye out for prospects. That prospect was a wealthy sportsman who studied law but was interested in aviation, David Davis.
David Davis. These guys named Donald Douglas, David Davis.
Everyone's out there getting that D.
Everyone's
short for Donald.
Out there trying to get that. Yeah.
Davis was he was the hot new trend. Who's going to do it? Who's going to fly the continent nonstop in one single thing? Everyone's trying to do it. Well, by 1920 had never not been done. And while the deal was to build a single plane for Davis, he'd only wanted one. Donald Douglas hesitantly leapt at the opportunity, if that makes sense.
That's usually how I leap.
Reluctantly, with great reluctance. Yeah. Together, they formed Davis Douglas Airplane Co. And together, meaning one guy's engineerical genius and the other guy's money, they created the Douglas Davis Cloudster in February of 1921.
Cloudster?
The Cloudster.
Okay.
You can download any plane. Share to share, P2P.
It might like skip a little bit.
Yeah, it's going to be called something weird, but it'll be Nirvana.
Yeah.
And
it'll send your computer to Nirvana.
So they started this company. They made this plane. They made it in, of all places, Santa Monica, California.
Oh, yeah.
Right along the coast. This baby must have been a Red Bull because it's got wings. The Cloudster was a single-engine, single-bay biplane that was 36 feet, 9 inches long with a wingspan of 55 feet and a height of 12 inches with an engine that produced 408 horsepower with a cruise speed of 85 miles per hour and a maximum of 120 miles per hour, which is almost as fast as I drive.
Which is the lower and higher limits of what my car does.
Come on, Grandma. Kick it up to 86.
Was this at what is now the Santa Monica Airport? Or was it just, the whole place was basically an airport back then?
Along the coast, I feel like everything was an airport. This wasn't on Wilshire. I don't know where they cooked this one up, but his factory's along Wilshire. The Cloudster was the first airplane capable of lifting a payload greater than its own weight.
Okay.
Sadly.
How could... That seems impossible. Like that's like ant technology.
I think it's like tugboat ant technology.
Yeah.
I
guess tugboat.
Tugboats also do that.
But tugboats in water. Tugboats in water.
What's rocks but land water?
What's the sky but thin water?
He drowned on air? Sadly, though, its only accomplishment would be that it could lift a payload greater than its own weight because David Davis took off in the Cloudster in February of 1921 and only made it 785 miles in 8 hours and 45 minutes before a timing gear failed, forcing Davis to loud the Cloudster in Texas. before Davis and Douglas could make another.
Took them 8 hours to get to
I
Texas.
drive faster than that. From California, before Davis and Douglas could make another attempt, the nonstop continental flight was achieved by Kelly and McReady in 1923. So Davis pulled out of the company and sold the Cloudstar off. It was said that after that, the Cloudstar was used to smuggle alcohol into the States from Mexico during Prohibition, and in 1926 crash landed in Ensenada and was damaged beyond repair. It truly is better to burn out than fade away.
It's drinking on a beach in Ensenada now.
It's wearing a little hat.
We've all crashed out in Ensenada. Am I right, man? Right, man? Man, am I right?
Man, wake up. Man.
Hombre.
Call 911.
This was our time in Ensenada, our spring break in Ensenada.
The song Corona from Minutemen, partially based on Russ. Not burning out or fading away was Don Douglas, who incorporated the Douglas Company in July of 1921 and landed a contract with the Navy, who had Douglas build torpedo bombers, starting with the DT-1 and later perfecting that with the creation of the DT-2. I'm doing a movie phone guy. From his contract, he was able to build the Navy 6 aircrafts, and with that money was able to lease the old Herman Film Corporation building off of Wilshire in Santa Monica and have himself a true facility. This was the Douglas Aircraft Company, the one of the three we have in the Southland, or had in the Southland. It was here where the U.S. Army Air Service commissioned Douglas to build a plane that would be the first to fly around the world, thereby connecting all continents by air travel at a faster rate than ships ever could. So Douglas got to work. Using the DT-2 as a foundation, he redesigned the fuel system to hold 644 gallons from what the DT-2 could hold, which was 115 gallons of fuel. So he almost, I guess that's tripling the amount of fuel they could hold. They gave the aircraft a vertical tail with extra bracing struts and moved the cockpit windows for the pilot and the flight mechanic closer together to improve communication. The aircraft was retrofitted to handle different temperatures and humidity levels as well, and would be called the Douglas World Cruiser, or DWC for short.
DW.
Do you wrestle for DWC?
DW. Oh, this is so Hollywood coded. DW Griffith, WC Fields.
Oh my God.
This guy was so Hollywood.
He was so alcoholic.
Yeah.
Racist and alcoholic, and he liked to kick babies. That's what WC Fields. The WC prototype was completed in November of 1923, and by March of 1924, 4 world cruisers named Chicago, New Orleans, Boston, and Seattle left Clover Field in Santa Monica, heading for Seattle, the place, not the plane. From there, the 4 DWCs took off on their around-the-world expedition. So 4 planes going around the world.
All at the same time? Why?
No idea. I have no good answer for that.
Well, you're going to go over the top. You, the bottom.
Yeah.
You left. You right.
I like Simpsons joke. They would have all immediately crashed into each other.
And you're all going to crash into when you get back here. You're all going to crash into each other.
And then all the pilots eject, but their parachutes all get tangled up in one big thing, and they fall to their deaths. This was April of 24. 175 days later, in September, 3 of the world cruisers have managed to successfully fly around the world, touching down in 28 countries and crossing the Pacific and Atlantic. Seattle, the plane, not the place, crashed on an Alaskan mountainside.
Oh my God.
And the Boston, again, the plane, was forced to make an emergency landing on the sea and then sank, but was replaced by a backup. Of these 2 incidents, there were no fatalities.
This is almost the Who's On First. Seattle crashed in Boston.
The what?
Seattle's in Alaska.
What? Boston sank to the bottom of the ocean, finally. Oh, the plane. And what's cool about this to me is that it was a worldwide effort with the support and aid of 28 countries around the world, helping to supply fuel, oil, spare parts, etc. for the greater good, a global effort to see this effort through. And it was a success. The model for
half of it was a success, it sounds like.
About more or less. The model for Douglas aircraft was then laid out in front of them. First around the world, first the world around.
Okay, that makes sense.
That makes
sense.
It
now.
Yeah.
Okay,
it's better written.
Yeah, I'll have to sit there and look at the billboard for a while. But I'll get it.
It doesn't make me horny, baby. This billboard.
Would I like to buy the World of Coke when I see this?
It needs 20% more Kate Upton, 30% less words. Let's make it a Carl's Jr. ad. By 1920,
if it doesn't go all over the place, it doesn't belong in your space.
This is NASA's first slogan. And regarding the Challenger, too. Why would they do that? That's not funny.
That's not funny,
That's
Greg.
not funny.
Those
people died.
NASA's first slogan had to do with Jack Parsons. And if it doesn't get all over the place, it doesn't belong in space.
In 1928, Douglas Aircraft was worth $25 million, managing to stay working and making money during the stock market crash of 1929, which happened the next year. In the early 1930s, Douglas made a short run producing what are called flying boats, or dolphins, as they are affectionately called. We call them now seaplanes. But Douglas made 25 of them. They were later adopted by the military in large quantities and used by the Navy and Coast Guard. They bought farmland in El Segundo and built their second factory closer to Mines Field, which would later become, as we know, LAX.
Right.
Now that
I guess because my place was like just south of that.
Yeah.
I guess it's because it's like, well, if we crash, we'll just crash into the ocean.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like a fake runway. Like there's,
Yeah, it kind of is.
yeah. And that part of the beach wasn't like Santa Monica was for like horny rich people.
Yeah. And if you don't take off, you'll just be on sand and it'll slow you down.
It'll slow you down. And then like party on the beach.
Yeah.
Da 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 da. That's Hawaii 5-0. He has a good.
Ohana!
Ohana means we gotta get out of here.
Ohana means eject.
What does it mean in a crash? He has a good catalog of designs behind under his belt now, but he wants to keep pushing it. It's 1932, and in a relatively short time, air travel has gone from an impossibility to a boundary-pushing event that could have easily been a fluke, to a gimmick, to a military offense, then sort of like back to a gimmick. But a gimmick that has like potential for once again pushing the boundaries for existence on this planet. In short, air travel was evolving quickly. Wooden planes were out as new discoveries and technologies were being worked out, and all metal planes became the standard. The era of the biplane was over, and it was time for the regular Joe to use aircraft for leisure travel, because the 2001 monolith in this timeline is at Airport Sbarro, and we needed to do everything in our power to manifest that.
We must.
What is it?
I must touch this lukewarm piece of pizza.
It's not called a calzone, but I know that it is.
I wish airplanes were made of wood again.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. I mean, like, we celebrate Woodies, like the cars made of wood. Why don't we do planes?
Hey, they're making Toy Story 5. That's a Woody. We got wood is back, baby. 2025, 2026, whenever that wood is back. Yeah.
And not a carpenter is tight. In August of 1932, Trans World Airlines, TWA for the common folk, approached Douglas about designing a commercial airliner that would rival the new Boeing 247, which was commissioned by United Airlines. The 247 is generally considered the first modern airliner. Now, William Boeing is said in a few different articles as being Don Douglas's chief rival. Okay. Number one in his book. This guy's got to go down. So when they offer him competition, you can build something to compete with Boeing. He's like, yes.
Well, he's not worried about Howard Hughes. Famously together, Howard Hughes.
Not a single thing wrong. Howard Hughes. And what golf course did he land in today? And where exactly is he? And who's Jane Russell?
What hotel has he locked himself into now?
And when you say fingernails,
how many feet?
Well, as long as he's well dressed and hasn't grown his hair out. What? Pajamas? So with the help of designer John Knudsen Northrup, the men began working on the Douglas Commercial, or DC-1, an all-metal twin-engine monoplane that could seat 12 passengers. The DC-1 set Douglas Air back over $300,000, but it was worth it, though. In July of 1933, it took off and was regarded at the time as the most advanced airline transport in the world. The DC-1, affectionately named City of Los Angeles.
Affectionately lamed? Wow.
Wow.
What a Freudian sip.
You grabbed the wrong mother at the market because you didn't look up a Freudian grip. Like that. I figured you would.
You just got out of the shower, you fall on the floor and your pee-pee's flopping everywhere. A Freudian slip. That is the true Freudian slip. You got a haircut and it's a bowl cut and it makes your head look a little phallic. A Freudian snip.
Oh, I thought it was a Freudian clip. Okay.
Oh, that's good too. You got a vasectomy. It happened on your little pee-pee. That's a Freudian snip. So the other one was a Freudian clip. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, you accidentally hit your mom's car. Freudian clip because you clipped it. Anyways, stop me before I do Freudian chip. Okay. The DC-1.
You reach into that bag of lace? Go on. But in that bag of lace, there was a hole cut out the bottom.
One of the chips looks like the Virgin Mary. Freudian chip. The DC-1, affectionately named the City of Los Angeles, was flown across the world in February of 1934, taking off from Grand Central Air Terminal in Glendale. Listen to that episode or our airport episode if you want to hear about that.
And you will hear more about it today.
Oh, my favorite little airport that's now a Disney factory.
Disney factory?
It makes
it's a dream factory.
Idiot, correct yourself.
That's where Ohana came from.
The DC-1 made the trip in a little over 13 hours, a new record, and it will go on to break 18 more records. And while it was mostly used for air mail services, the potential for its successors, the DC-2 made in 1935 and the DC-3, which would become the gold standard, a new step in the evolutionary process of air travel was made. Before the DC-3, a trip between coasts would take 25 hours with layovers and many more refueling stops, sometimes as many as 15 stops to interruptions in the journey. The DC-3 could do the trip by itself and only need to stop maybe 3 times to refuel, which was like still bad, but like it's a step. It is one of the steps. It was powered by 2 1,200
Imagine having to have 25 connecting flights.
Oh my God. This might as well be a bus trip. And there's even a gremlin on the wing and no one believes me.
Yeah, and that's like part of the experience.
And the gremlin, this looks like a teddy bear. What is this? Is this like a pre-flight show? Just show like a radio. It was powered by 2 1,200 horsepower twin engines, cantilevered metal wings, and a retractable landing gear, which was new, and a fuel capacity of 822 gallons. She cruised at 207 miles per hour and made room for 21 passengers comfortably. More importantly, this was the plane that allowed average Americans to fantasize about traveling leisurely. The doors were now open to the rest of the world, and while traveling, you would be offered cocktails and a delicious meal. You were a guest in the Ritz-Carlton in the sky, and the journey was now the destination.
Wow, it's just like today.
It's just like today. We're in the big Subaru in the sky.
He's in a better place.
Yeah, he's in a better place.
We're in a better place now.
He's watching La Samurai on a flight to Minneapolis at 1 a.m. That's what I did.
Nobody has socks on.
Nobody has socks on.
The Ritz-Carlton of the sky.
The seat spacing is great if you have no elbows and you hate to, what's it called?
Be comfortable.
Be comfortable. What do women call it when men take up a lot of room with their legs?
Let me mansplain to you what that is. It's manspreading,
It's
Greg.
manspreading. Oh, God, here he goes again. 11,000 DCs were made, and by the end of the 30s, Douglas Air was worth $61 million. The DC-3 stopped production in 1945, but it's said that at least 400 of them are still being used today for cargo runs. That's how good they are.
That's scary.
That
should not be happening.
They still have to stop 3 times.
Those shouldn't still be in operation.
No, I want to be in one of those
There's
loud.
gotta be
it's
a
like
Best Buy day.
Freight train that derailed, and now they've got air. That's what it's like.
It's Jughead's car going across the skies. That's horrible. That's a frightening
It's got
thought.
a rocking chair on top for grandma. That's a DC-3. And then the Pearl Harbor hit, and isolationism in America was melted down into bullets.
As we learned in Candy is Dandy, the Candy Review podcast,
Yes.
that was National Cotton Candy Day that happened.
It was national cotton floating in the ocean. All the
cotton candy would float on anything.
Back then, it was mostly what are they
Petroleum.
called? Petroleum. Cotton candy used to be mostly Brillo pads. They sprayed it.
You could clean your DC-12 with it, or whatever they're called.
We haven't got to the DC-12 yet. They only make it to the 8. Pearl Harbor happened. Isolation turned into bullets. A great joke. If Douglas thought he was doing swell during peacetime, his cup was about to overflow with productions because World War II was in full gunk. It was cruising at 207 miles per hour, and he was driving the thing. Being commissioned by the U.S. military to design aircrafts for many different purposes, the demands were high, so he built a 3rd SoCal factory in Long Beach and several more across the country, and these factories employed many people who stayed behind during the war, as we know, in Southland anyways, like World War II is when everybody who couldn't get a job before then suddenly... It saved America from the Depression, was World War II, which sucks. Giving jobs to many women who had never had the opportunity to work and employed people of color who had been barred from applying for work. Employment at Douglas Air factories grew to more than 160,000 employees, and between 1942 and 1945, they produced more than 30,000 airplanes for the war effort. The more notable crafts, and Rosie the Riveter too. The photos I know of women and people of color on the assembly line, it's like mostly Douglas Air photos.
And this was with the LA
the
factory?
ones that I could searching through. Yeah, the 3 main Douglases were here, but whenever I searched through the 40s, just doing like a decade search from not Libby, Tessa,
in your Tesla?
In my Tesla, which is I bought after he did this Nazi salute.
Don't worry, everybody.
Yeah,
I bought it last week.
Don't worry, it's a Cybertruck, so everyone knows where I stand. No, the photo archive.
I think it is called Tessa.
It's Tessa, not Libby. Tessa, they're sisters. One's really hot.
Now, I like their cousin Hoopla.
She's got
A
everything.
little weird. Yeah,
A little weird,
she'll
yeah.
do everything.
She'll do everything.
She'll even teach you a new language. Oh, baby.
It's funny that I always go to Libby first, and then I'm like, well, I guess it is kind of a trashy book. We'll have it on Hoopla. It's very funny that my brain's like that. The notable crafts they made during the war and they include the Havoc A20, which was the
That's a scary name.
It's a cool name. Military version of the DC-3 and was used as offense. It was a light bomber with a rear gun turret. They made a C-47 Skytrain, or they called the Goonie Bird, because they were all masturbating on there. It was a military transport also adapted from DC-3, and that would carry the paratroopers over Europe and also evacuate wounded soldiers back from the war. There was the SBD diver bombers as well that were heavily used. The A-4...
The BDE diver...
SBD diver bombers.
Silent but deadly.
Silent but deadly. I was trying to make a sadomasochist S&M joke, but it just fell apart.
These are... I mean, what better description than silent but deadly for what these bombers are?
Fart sounds. The Skyhawk was an attack bomber, as well as the B-18 and the B-23. Through all of this, Douglas remained a hard worker with his nose to the grindstone. He worked his 8 hours a day. He traveled very little, and when he got home, he was a recluse. He doted on his family, and to him, the work was just doing work. It was a day in the office.
Now we're talking. Now these guys are more similar than I thought.
When the war ended, a lot of the government contracts ceased, and the factories that were not in California shut down. The ones in California stayed open a little bit longer. R3 remained open simply as Douglas Air with far less employees since there was less to do. Through the war...
There'll be another one. Don't worry.
Oh, yeah. There's also a made-up one that had not a single bullet was fired, but they'll still make all the stuff. Through the war, the Douglas Air produced over 29,000 planes to help with the war, and his company was among the many that helped bring prosperity to post-war Los Angeles. Like, it really did, unfortunately, save the country and the city. From that point, Douglas started concentrating on other airborne objects like rockets and missiles, which he prototyped in 1941, playing with infrared and visual guides, but none of these... Infrared.
Yeah.
Thank you. Infrared.
Someone didn't go to MIT.
Someone has been watching a bunch of war movies. He helped develop the Sparrow air-to-air missile used in the McConnell F-3H-2M Demon Fighter, but that was not a successful until like later incarnations when it became the AIM-7 series HX location.
Yeah, which gave way to the ASL 14. ASL 14 male Los Angeles.
Douglas also developed a surface missile for the Army and the Thor RIBM, which
these are cool names.
These are really cool
They have
names.
much better names than mine.
What the Sprucey Goosey or whatever?
Cousin Brucey?
Yeah. The Lefty Lucy wasn't a good name to you? It's military version righty tighty. He developed plans for this long-range missile during the Cold War. It was later used by Britain as part of a nuclear deterrent. And more interestingly, his whole thing he created was used by NASA for the Saturn, I think it's either SIV or S4, S4B, which was for their missions to the moon, like the third stage of it coming apart. Yeah, that's part of his technology was used for that. But Don Douglas was ready to land his plane, hoping his son, Donald Jr., would succeed him at the company. He took the position of president, but lacked his dad's leadership skills. And this at a time when Douglas Air was already struggling with production and management and financial challenges. Doug Sr. had designed the DC-4, but it was a slow process, and other aviation companies had finally caught up to him. The jet engine was a new phase of aviation evolution, and Douglas was not in front of it. By the time the DC-4 was produced and used, it was outlapped by Lockheed Constellation, or the Connie, which offered pressurized cabin, meaning the plane could climb to higher altitudes, making air travel smoother. They didn't have to go in the low air stuff.
Yeah, they only had to refuel two times.
Douglas got into a frenzy trying to compete with Lockheed as well as his old rival Boeing, and his panic was starting to show. He was starting to make more mistakes as things were taking longer. Good projects that would allow him to advance fell by the wayside as he continued retooling the DC model, making it a DC-8, which had to compete with the Boeing 707, their newest airliner. And to the average passenger in the early 50s, did they consider any of this? Did they like, oh, well, that one's running on this engine? No, they're just like, I want to get on the plane. The one that goes in the sky, you know, the one
that takes me there.
That takes me to the thing. I don't care what kind of plane it is.
Isn't the 707 the one that's like constantly crashing now?
Yeah, I think it is. Or is it 747?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, it might be.
Donald Sr. was going through a divorce by 1953, and he had stepped down to become chairman of the board while his son took the role of president, as we said. The company struggled keeping up with the growing competition. Finally, they merged in 1967 with McDonnell Aircraft, becoming McDonnell Douglas. All this
Is it
to McDonald.
McDonald, not McDonald's.
No, McDonald.
Okay. McDonald's Douglas.
McDonald's Douglas.
Ruth's Chris.
I'm loving it. Ruth's Chris. Okay, don't even get me started on that. All this, they merged to avoid filing bankruptcy. That's how bad they had been doing. This was 20 years after the war when he was like one of the wealthiest men. Don Sr. was made honorary chairman of the new firm, or yada yada, and his son Don Jr. received a long contract. Donald Douglas Sr. was not happy about any of this and spent his twilight years in Palm Springs incredibly bitter about this until his death in 1981. McDonnell Douglas made jet fighters and cruise missiles, and in 1984 bought Hughes helicopters from old P.P. Jar himself.
Interesting.
In 1990s, McDonnell Douglas was acquired by Boeing Company, a final finger in the wound to Donald Douglas. They later retired a Douglas aircraft name in like 2015. I think they stopped like officially calling things the Douglas model.
I think everything it's either Boeing or Raytheon now. Like that's I think all there is left.
Yeah, and they make everything that blows up other stuff now,
and like, sometimes themselves.
Yeah. And in true Jack Parsons style, sometimes themselves, if they're doing the Monster Mash correctly, which is a joke that didn't land and it makes me upset. I think about constantly.
All right, so this is a big one that kind of got away from me. So let's dive right in.
That's his incantation every month. He says, this one kind of got away from me. I'm sorry I did 12 pages.
All right, so are you ready?
Yes.
When it comes to aircraft, you can't get any higher powered than Howard.
He should have really.
When it comes to making movies, you can never lose with Hughes. It's time to finally talk about the man who put his own mark on the Los Angeles aerospace industry and also his own pee in a jar. Howard Hughes.
One of the city's most eccentric characters.
I was thinking he's almost, for L.A. Meekley in particular, he's almost a Mary Pickford-esque character.
I agree.
Where, like, he comes up in the outskirts of or at least just as a reference in a lot of, and we did talk about him in the Beverly Hills Bermuda Triangle episode.
We did.
But now we're going to get into him, his company, and him all over again. And that the Beverly Hills Bermuda Triangle thing is kind of like a key part of his whole life story. So Howard Robard Hughes Jr. Was born December 24th, 1905, although some places claim it was actually in September, other claim it was in October. I don't know why there's confusion about when Howard Hughes was born.
Yeah.
He's something of a Christ figure. He was born in Humble, Texas, just outside of Houston.
He was.
But though he may have had humble beginnings, he had anything but humble beginnings.
I hate it here. I gotta go.
Trying to think of something else that rhymes with Freudian slip. That was a Freudian.
Have you seen the way he's dressed? That's a Freudian drip.
Are you liking the coffee I made for you? I won't finish that. So when he was just 4 years old in 1908, his dad, Howard Robard Hughes Prime, aka Bo, got frustrated with chasing oil claims around Texas with his Texas Oil Fuel Company. Instead, he designed a brand new, much more effective drill bit for oil derrick called the Hughes tool bit.
Okay, it was a tool used for drilling.
It was a drill
oil.
bit,
Let's say that like
you know more about drills than I do. I borrowed a drill from you once.
Yeah, you sure did, didn't you?
It's the thing that
best
that
drilling
drills.
you ever got. Yeah.
I won't deny that. I don't have a drill. So he designed this Hughes tool bit, a stroke of genius enhanced in its geniositude by I don't think that's a word.
No.
I didn't go to MIT. Only by the strategy that he didn't sell the drill bits, but rather leased them to drilling companies.
MIT morons in training. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's where we went.
Yeah, that's where we went. Yeah, go ahead.
And just like that, the Hughes family was worth millions of dollars. Yep. And Howard Jr. graduated from baby to Nepo baby.
I'm growing my mustache. Don't you dare. Don't do it.
We're a mutton chop family. And a troubled little Nepo baby he was. He was very shy, as he was for his whole life.
Is it because of his Freudian problem? Because he has one. His mom would wash him all the time.
Is that true?
Check his genitals all the time.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of rumors about Howard Hughes that aren't. But
I don't know if it's confirmed. I heard it from Karina Longworth, who I trust. But I think his mom checked his genitals all the time.
Yeah, I don't trust her.
Oh my God.
So he was very shy. He was partially deaf and also described by his peers as a sissy.
Oh, no.
He did not fit in by any stretch of the imagination and developed/inherited certain neuroses that would famously manifest uncontrollably later in life from his mom, Aileen Gano, who herself was a hypochondriac and had an intense fear of bugs and small animals.
Wow, really? I didn't know that.
But he was also pretty smart and showed a lot of initiative. When he was really young, he wanted a motorcycle, which, much like me to you, Greg, his mom wouldn't let him get. So instead, he got, you're gonna get in an accident.
What? Because it's called motorcycle? Go ahead.
Instead, he got, you're gonna have a Freudian slip on their bike. Instead, he got a bunch of used car parts and used them to motorize his bicycle.
Oh, interesting.
Creating the first motorized bike in Houston.
Wow.
When he was
Pretty cool.
11, he also built the first wireless transmitter in Houston.
Wow.
When he was 14, he asked his dad to buy him something that this time they actually did. A ride along on an airplane.
Oh, cool.
He really wanted that. His dad paid for him to be on a 10-minute flight on a Curtiss seaplane. And finally, this shy, neurotic kid felt some semblance of peace and fell deeply in love with flying.
Yeah, there's no germs up here.
So, space, the cleanest frontier.
Ew, what's that? Ew, what's that?
Ew, is that a star? But it wasn't time for that yet. In 1921, he was shipped off to a boarding school in Ojai, California.
Oh, hi.
Ojai, the place where I saw
Robert Redford?
not
No.
Robert Redford.
What did you say?
Alex DeLong. What's his name? What's his
Malcolm
name?
McDowell.
Malcolm McDowell. I kept wanting to say Andy McDowell.
Yeah. If you saw Andy McDowell somewhere, call me up.
Call me. Oh, no. You saw Malcolm McDowell? Run. So he went to boarding school in Ojai. It was called the Thatcher School. But sadly, the next year, his mom died of an ectopic pregnancy.
no.
So he
Eileen.
moved back to Houston. What?
Eileen, oh no.
Oh, no, Eileen. So he moved back to Houston to be with his dad and enrolled at Rice University, where he didn't study rice, apparently. So he dropped out of that, too.
Why am I paying for the school then?
I'm hungry.
Yeah, I'm hungry.
I thought this was a restaurant. And then, and I've been here for 4 years.
Like the soup plantation.
I was here to buy slaves. And then he briefly went to Caltech when sadly, yet again, his dad died in 1924 of a heart attack. This time he decided for good that school was cursed. So he dropped out for good.
I'm running out of family members. I can't go to school anymore.
Who else is going to die?
Yeah.
And he moved back once again to Houston to take over his dad's business, which was now called the Hughes Tool Company. But he didn't want to just run it. He wanted to dominate it.
Oh, of course.
Up until this point, the entire...
He's from Texas.
Up until at this point, the entire Hughes extended family owned stock in the family company, but Howard wanted it all. So he bought out all the shares of the company, and he was now the sole owner of the Hughes Tool Company.
Okay.
And the way he got those... He went on a fishing boat with every single member. And it was weird. They were all on shore watching. They saw it happen and they still got in the boat.
They still got in the boat.
I mean, he did have cannolis, so who wouldn't? So he was barely 20 years old.
Leave the ocean. Take the cannoli. What?
Leave the germs. Take the jars.
When we get Darby Crash and Pat Smear? Oh, I thought you were talking about the band.
So he was barely 20 years old. He just got married to a woman named Ella Rice. Again, this guy's obsessed with rice. She's not a restaurant either, buddy. He ran a giant company in Texas, and he was rolling in dough, which would be unsanitary to him later. And then he got bored of it. He wanted to try something new. And what better place for a rich kid to try something new? Los Angeles.
In Los Angeles, home of many plane crashes that come.
In 1926, he and his wife moved to LA, where Howard met up with his uncle Rupert Hughes, who worked in a brand new industry in town, movies.
What did he do? He's a producer?
He was a producer, yeah. What's that? Something new that he has no experience with? Count little Howard Hughes all in.
It really is that.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
There's one really funny example of this, but yeah, he would just like, what's that? I want to do that now.
He really is like ADHD, all shucks with money.
Yeah. Like Elon Musk.
Yeah.
So Howard decided right away that he was going to make movies. Yeah. Something he had no experience doing, but a lot of money to do so.
I bet he saw 3 movies and was like,
at this point,
me too.
In 1926, he might not have seen any movies at this point. He moved into an office in the Taft building at Hollywood and Vine.
Interesting. Okay.
And began a new career as a movie producer.
Yeah.
The first movie
I'm a new movie producer. What's a movie?
The first movie he put together was called Swell Hogan in 1926, but it was more like Swill Hogan. Sorry.
It's Hulk Hogan's grandpa. Go ahead.
Claws in. Because after making it, Howard Hughes decided it was so bad that he never even released it.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
it was never seen.
It's the Coyote versus Acme of the day.
It was a tax write-off.
Yeah, it was a tax
but
write-off.
it'll come out on Pluto. Up next.
the planet, not the station.
Wait, what station? And also on planet Fubo. Up next was Everybody's Acting, which actually was released and people enjoyed, but then came his first big hit,
Yes.
2 Arabian Nights, which won Best Director at the very first Oscars.
Yeah.
So now at this point, Howard Hughes had proven he was a Hollywood player, and this was when his Playboy era began.
Yeah. You bet your ass it started.
Yeah.
And man,
man
what
did
a
it-
murderer's
And man, did
row.
it end quickly. oh my God, yeah. At the first hint of fame, he divorced his wife in 1929.
absolutely.
And went on to date a legendary string of women
Yes.
throughout the Great Depression and into World War
Not to
II.
promote another podcast.
I swear to God, if you bring up Karina Longworth again,
I'm going to bring up her podcast. You must remember this. Who did a series
hosted
on
by I don't know who.
The Many Loves of Howard Hughes, where she goes through like each woman and is written as
Every bedding.
yeah,
Every
kiss. Betting. Yeah.
So here's just a few of them. Betty Davis, Ginger Rogers, Lana Turner, Katharine Hepburn, Jean Harlow, James Russell, Ava Gardner. He would tell his chauffeurs that while they were driving his girlfriends, they couldn't go faster than 2 miles per hour on bumpy roads because he was afraid it would damage their boobs. Totally
a little
normal
kid.
guy.
This
Yeah.
is like the movie Blank Check. I don't know if he slept with all of them, but he definitely thought of himself as a
I
lot of
wouldn't be
their
surprised.
boyfriends.
Yeah.
I know he like is responsible for Ida Lupino becoming a director, which is great.
He is responsible. Well, I'll get into it a little
Okay.
bit, but Jane Russell's whole career. He's responsible.
whole career.
So during this time,
Her boobs' whole career, yeah.
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 During this time, he also got back into that one thing that really interested him as a kid, other than boobs, flying.
Flying.
And what is a plane but a penis with 2 boobs? That's a Freudian ship. So one day he was golfing at the Beverly Hills Country Club when he saw someone piloting a small plane overhead. So he
I wish they would crash here.
land here. So he followed him to where he landed and offered him $100 a day to teach him how to do that.
Cool.
And 2 years later, he had his pilot's license.
Badass.
Which was a skill he brought to his most notorious movie, Hell's Angels.
A movie so good he made it twice.
Did he make it twice?
I think in the middle of it, talkies happened, and he's like,
Oh yeah, yeah.
And he's like, let's redo all of it. They're like, what?
Like-
They're burying all the people who died making it.
Well, the movie career of Howard Hughes, the aviation career of Howard Hughes, and the life of Howard Hughes are like almost 3 separate things. So like I didn't go too deeply,
it's fine,
but yeah,
that's fine.
the Hell's Angels thing. This was where Howard Hughes's reputation of being an irresponsible filmmaker came about. It was about World War I pilots
What is he, David O.
in
Russell?
the British Royal Air Force. Not that irresponsible. Not that notorious. So it was about the British Royal Air Force and went way over budget, took almost 3 years to finish. And you're right. Yeah. This was in a time where people were making like 8 movies a week. So they did. Yeah. The talkies came out, I remember, and they did have to like redo everything.
Yeah.
But part of it was because Howard Hughes was so particular about how the movie should be made that he wouldn't let some scenes be shot until the clouds looked just the right way for the shot, which led to 2 directors quitting.
But here's the thing. Good movie.
Here's the thing. He was right to do
He was
so.
right to do these things.
Part of the delay was because he wanted to stage really dangerous stunts
Yeah.
using actual World War I planes, which led to the death of a mechanic and 3 pilots before Howard decided he'd just fly the planes himself, which led to him crashing the plane and injuring himself so bad the filming had to be delayed for months.
That's the right call.
And that's how you kill people out in the desert filming the Twilight Zone movie.
Hey, it was the jungle, not the desert.
No, it was the desert. It was meant to be the jungle, but it was in like Santa Clarita.
Was it really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
If you buy our calendar, you'll see where it happened.
Great.
You won't see it, but you'll see on the...
It gets graphic. They're burying people, and they're like, "You're so irresponsible. What if you were in the plane?" And it's like,
Yeah, what if
yeah,
I was
what
in
if
it?
I was in the plane?
So this was one of, as we know, many plane crashes Howard Hughes' future.
Yeah.
In the end, it was the most expensive movie ever made, costing $4 million. And the premiere at the Chinese theater had people parachuting out of airplanes over Hollywood Boulevard, which Donald Trump did have happen
Yeah.
when they sent the Marines in.
That's where their comparisons end.
And aside from being a big hit, this movie and everything that happened behind the scenes transformed Howard Hughes from Hollywood hotshot to Hollywood legend.
Yeah.
Like it if this is all he did with his life, he would still be being talked about.
Yeah, we wouldn't be talking about PB jars.
Oh, no, we would be. The rest of his movies were most notable for flaunting the censorship standards of the time, most notably in the first Scarface movie in 1932 and a little later in The Outlaw in 1943. The former for the violence, the latter for Jane Russell's bazingas, which Howard Hughes accentuated with her wardrobe and a special bra he designed just for her, and the efforts launched her breasts. Into
she's also a great actress and singer.
All the way out to her chin. So now we know the first thing Howard Hughes is known for, movies, but this is an Aerospace episode, isn't it? We've talked about a lot of other things. Is it an Aerospace episode?
I thought we were talking about World War II.
I thought we were talking about
bazingas.
Freudian slip. The coffee shop at CSUN. In the early 1930s, Howard Hughes started getting really into his hobby of flying. So much so that in 1932, he wanted to be around airplanes so bad, he took a job as a co-pilot for American Airways under a fake name.
Wow.
So acclaimed...
Huey.
Yeah, Huey, Dewey, and Louie. It's French.
Yeah.
So acclaimed Hollywood producer Howard Hughes was loading bags and piloting planes for a major passenger airline under a false identity, which doesn't make sense on any level.
Nope.
But then he went one step beyond Mrs. Doubtfiring his way into the skies and created an entire company as a subsidiary of his family tool company to fund and keep track of his spending on his plane hobby.
He's made one of the most iconic action adventure. I don't know if it's adventure, but like, just let him make the company. You know what I mean? Like, he clearly is good with planes. Just let him. But he's like, I'm going to put a fake mustache over my real mustache and come up with a fake name. And like, just tell them that you want to do planes. They're going to be like, yeah, all right. What year is it? 1930 something?
1930. He didn't want people being like, is that Howard Hughes flying the plane? Like, he just wanted to, he don't want people talking to him. So this company was called the Hughes Aircraft Company. It was basically just him and 12 employees in a rented hangar at what is now the Burbank Airport, experimenting with airplanes he bought. Like, it was just his hobby.
Oh,
like this was basically like Jay Leno's garage.
Oh, I
like
see.
But he passed it off as like, this is a company.
Yeah. Company
Howard,
of boys.
A company of men.
Company of men hanging out.
So Howard wanted to tweak them in ways so that he could do things nobody had ever done before. And the first of this was the H1. No, that's A1. A1 is the barbecue, is the steak sauce.
That's
this
the steak
is the
sauce,
H1.
yeah.
Which you'll eat it. Ruth's Chris.
This is barbecue sauce.
It comes in jars. He built this in 1935. By this point, they had moved their headquarters into a bigger hangar at the Grand Central Airport in Glendale with a guy named Dick Palmer, that's got to be fake. And on September 13th of that year, he took it out to Santa Ana, where he set the world speed record at 352 miles per hour, then crashed it into the ground.
Great. It wouldn't be Howard Hughes unless he crashed something into the ground.
I did it. Crash. That's the Howard Hughes.
But how do we know it's Howard? Crash. It's Howard.
But instead of dying like he should have multiple times by this point, he fixed the plane back up and got back in it on January 19th, 1937 at 2:14 a.m. at the Union Air Terminal in Burbank, now the Burbank Airport, and flew it straight to the always safe to fly into Newark, New Jersey airport, landing at 12:42 p.m., setting the cross-country flight record at 7 hours, 28 minutes, and 25 seconds.
Pretty cool.
He didn't crash this one. New Jersey just looked like he had. New Jersey just looks like that. Don't worry. Did Howard Hughes crash here?
We called it the Jersey Devil, but it turned out to be Howard Hughes in a really fast rocket thing.
For this flight, he won the Harmon Trophy, which is given out to the world's best aviator.
I'm not there, Harmon.
Harming the ground.
Yeah.
And this H1 that he designed paved the way in its speed and ability to stay in the air for long amounts of time for many of the fighter planes that were soon developed for use on both sides of World War II. Like, this changed the world's fighter planes. This H1 is now in the Smithsonian and is probably being used by Kid Rock to get high in or something.
What, do I want to smoke crack outside?
Oh, I'm going in the H1.
Yeah.
H for hillbilly. But Howard Hughes wasn't done setting records. In July 1938, he and a crew of 4 piled in a Lockheed 14 and proceeded to break the record for a flight around the globe, taking 3 days, 19 hours, and 14 minutes. In case they might have crashed into a body of water at any point during this flight, the whole airplane was filled with ping pong balls.
Oh my God. Why?
So it would float.
Oh, okay.
In case they landed in water.
That's really funny.
And it makes total sense.
It's totally logical.
And they play so much beer pong around the world. That was the other record.
That was the
longest game of beer pong.
This one lasted for 3 whole minutes.
until we threw up.
Yeah.
For this and all his other aviation work in the 30s, he was given the Congressional Gold Medal from President Roosevelt in 1939. So now Howard Hughes had conquered the tool business, the movie business, and now he was an aviation legend.
Yeah.
But he wasn't yet in the aviation business. It was time he started to make money off of his passion. And what luck? He could clearly see that war was brewing in Europe. So he decided to do the morally correct thing and expand his aviation company into war profiteering.
I better learn how to speak German fast.
Yeah, I better become a double agent.
Yeah.
How many sides are there to this war? How do you speak Filipino? So Hughes Aircraft at this point wasn't seen as a legitimate airplane company.
Sure.
People saw it as Howard's little hobby that was funded by his inherited family fortune. And it was.
Yeah.
Like, that's really all it was. Douglas and Lockheed, this was not. Like, this was not a legitimate company. And Howard wanted to change that. And to do that, he needed two things: more space and government contracts.
Right.
First, the space. His dinky little part of the Grand Central Airport wasn't going to cut it anymore. He simply needed more room, which is when he remembered a part of town he filmed Hell's Angels in that was basically a big empty wetlands, and that was the area we now know as Playa Vista.
Right. He's out there being a playa vista. Go ahead.
He's being a playa, mister. Oh, wait, I said it wrong.
Oh, God, I had to, all this research is
Is
bad.
it not Playa Mista? So in 1940, he bought 260 acres of this area for $500,000. That was basically the area today that would be between Lincoln on the west, Jefferson on the north, and Teal on the east and south. He had a few buildings he had been using in Burbank and Glendale moved there physically, but then he hired Henry L. Gogarty to design a new compound for him to launch his aviation company, Sky High.
Sky High.
First-
Is that the creator of Gogurt?
Mr. Gogarty? You know, they said he lived life in a tube, but he really gave life to us in a tube. At first, it was only a few hangars and buildings, including a place for Howard himself to live in. But over the next few years, it grew to 60,000 air-conditioned square feet, complete with an almost 2-mile-long runway, which was the world's longest private runway when it was built in 1943 until it closed in 1986. And all the buildings were painted the signature Hughes green, which it is believed Howard picked because he got a good deal on a bunch of Army surplus paint.
Of course.
So that was that.
It's always that.
Color.
Yeah, it's always something like that.
The company officially moved into this compound on July 4th, 1941.
Hey.
We love America. But Howard Hughes, for all that he was not very self-aware about, he knew the limits of his abilities.
Yeah.
He was an inventive thinker and he had an exceptional talent and understanding for aviation, but what he was not was an engineer. Like, he wasn't a smart person. He knew that and he accepted that, or at least he understood that if he wanted to succeed, he needed to hire people who were better at that than he was. So he made sure to hire extremely capable people to work for him. To do this, he basically plundered the halls of Caltech. His two main people were a couple of Caltech grads named Simon Ramo, who he poached from General Electric, and Dean E. Woldridge, who he stole from Bell, the telephone company.
Okay.
Not the city.
Not the city.
And to manage it all, he hired a retired Air Force Lieutenant General named Harold C. George. And in this environment, he encouraged creativity and invention and the sharing of ideas. And the first thing to come of this environment was a new military airplane they built on spec, hoping it would lead to an actual government contract, the D-2 bomber.
Okay. God, even they have to write specs.
Yeah, he wrote this was a spec on The Good Place. It did get replaced by AI. They're
Yeah.
just writing into it.
They're just writing
They're designing these with AI now.
Imagine the shenanigans of Howard Hughes and Jack Parsons together. Here's
He
shenanigans.
didn't come till later.
Oh,
I don't think they were really.
In the
I don't
same-
think they crossed paths by this point.
all right.
I don't think Howard Hughes would want to cross paths with someone like that.
Yeah, if you hate germs, you should probably stay away from
Yeah, you don't want to stay from Mr. Germ.
Mr. Fluids.
So the D2 could hold 5 people. It could go 450 miles per hour, and it was made of plywood. So now they had the compound. They had a proof of concept. All they needed were government contracts. They didn't have the track record and proven history of quality that a company like Douglas had.
Yeah.
But what they did have was Howard Hughes.
Right.
And what Howard Hughes had was a ton
Chlamydia.
of money. It was syphilis. And what Howard Hughes had was a ton of money and connections with the rich and the famous.
Yes.
With these 2 weapons, he basically brute forced his way into the aviation big leagues. He invited FDR's son, Elliot, DR, to the Playa Vista compound to see the D2. And a few weeks later, they got a contract from the U.S. government to build 100 of these.
Wow, really?
They actually ended up wanting them redesigned not as a bomber, but as a reconnaissance plane called the XF-11. His plane crashed in the Beverly Hills Bermuda Triangle. That was testing this plane out.
Okay, interesting.
So that's the plane he was flying.
Okay.
From that came more contracts that led to genuine innovation that helped America turn the tide of World War II. They developed wired rather than mechanical controls in airplanes that not only made the planes more responsive, but also lighter.
Right.
Their most notable contribution to the war effort was developing a flexible ammo feed that many bomber and patrol planes used
interesting.
that made their guns much less likely to jam.
Yeah.
Then in 1944, Howard became a majority owner of TWA and then bought several Lockheed Constellations for them, which he then used his Washington connections to negotiate a deal with the U.S. government to have them transport troops to Europe.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So these were all the successes of Hughes aircraft during World War II. But the reality is the company during this time was mostly a failure. During the war, the company got just under $22 million in government contracts, and almost all of that went towards the 100 XF-11s they had ordered that I talked about. Want to guess how many they ended up building?
How many?
Guess.
17.
0.
Oh, my God.
Even they didn't build any of these. They never actually made any by the time the war ended. So the government canceled that contract, having wasted all that time and that money.
Wow.
But the most famous failure of this era of the company, and one of maybe two things Howard Hughes is most known for, is the folly of the Hercules project.
Yeah.
Hercules.
Yeah.
The contract got clumped up. Now, I couldn't tell if he got an official contract for this or if the government just gave him money for this, but he got his hands on $20 million from the U.S. government, with which he was told to build a fleet of flying boats.
Okay.
The purpose of these was that the current airplanes they had could only transport about 50 soldiers or so overseas at a time, like you were saying.
Yeah.
To move the massive amounts of troops needed during World War II, they had to use boats like the Queen Mary, like we talked about.
And you could sink a boat.
The problem was the German U-boats.
Yeah.
You can sink this. Even the Queen Mary, even the Titanic too,
even the
could
Great
sink.
Coast, yeah.
They were sinking American ships left and right, so the government wanted a boat that could fly. So he put
Gravity be damned.
So he put jetpacks on the Queen Mary. And who better to create a crazy thing like that than the craziest man in aviation?
He was crazy. Yeah.
Originally, Hughes was working on this with famed shipbuilder Henry J. Kaiser of Kaiser Permanente fame.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
But once the insanity of this undertaking became clear, Kaiser dropped out and it became Howard Hughes's passion project. To start, the scale of this plane required them to build a brand new hangar on the Playa Vista compound. This was building 15 that was 2.5 football fields long, 8 stories high, and because of the metal rationing at the time, was the world's biggest wooden structure. What they came up with had 8 engines and was capable of holding 750 soldiers at a time, and was 79 feet high with a wingspan of 319 feet 11 inches. For comparison, the biggest plane today is the Airbus A380. The wingspan of that is only 262 feet.
Wow.
So this airplane, what they called the H-4 Hercules, was and still is to this day the biggest airplane ever built. But its most defining feature was that, again, because of the metal rationing, this plane was built entirely of wood.
It sure was.
Which was why his critics mockingly called it the Spruce Goose, a name which Howard Hughes hated because it was actually made of birch. The birch lurch.
Yeah, it's much more of a duck than a goose, I'll have you know.
Yeah, like Donald Duck.
Yeah.
The government ordered 3 of these to be built, but in typical Howard Hughes fashion, only one was ever made, and it wasn't even flown by the time the war was over. So this was yet another failure from Hughes Aircraft.
It is his folly, for sure.
It's his folly. The one and only...
But it's made.
Hey, he did
They made it.
Hey, folly be damned. It worked.
It's sitting somewhere. They tried to marry that thing to the Queen Mary one. I do remember that.
Please be a simp for the Queen Mary.
Is it arranged marriage?
The one and only time it was ever flown was on November 2nd, 1947, when the government demanded a demonstration of this monstrosity to see where their money was going.
Yeah.
So Howard Hughes himself flew it for 1 mile, 70 feet above the water off Long Beach. Hundreds of people came to watch, but nobody believed from this demonstration that it would be capable of long distance flights.
Sure.
So no more were ever made, but Howard Hughes...
so big a crash into the sky. Go ahead.
It was the only airplane to uncrash. The action of flying was the crash.
Yeah.
But Howard Hughes kept it ready and preserved just in case the government changed their mind for years at the cost of $1 million a year. He kept it. They never changed their mind. In 1980, it was bought by the Aero Club and kept on display in the dome next to the Queen Mary. And in 1993, it was retired to the Evergreen Space and Aviation Museum in McMinnville, Oregon.
Oregon, that's where it is. Okay.
So World War II was mostly a bust for Hughes, but lucky for them, America just couldn't stop going to war. They decided to pivot away from actual aircraft because that wasn't working and focus more on the electronic accessory side of war machines.
Yeah.
With the Cold War setting in, the government contracted Hughes in 1947 to develop a guided missile, which ended up being the Falcon, which was the world's first radar-guided air-to-air missile that were used heavily during the Vietnam War eventually. Again, not cool, but not a cool thing to use, but like cool technology.
It's very Oppenheimer of like, wow, you guys did it.
Yeah.
Please don't use this.
Yeah, don't use only use this for good.
Yeah.
You know, like for fireworks.
If Superman's villains come back, we could use it against them, but like, but should we have?
I am Howard, peer of jars. Then in 1948, they got a contract with the Air Force to make a radar-based fire control system for interceptor aircraft. And with successes like these, by 1950, they were actually profitable and had over 5,000 employees, including Jack Parsons in 1949 before he blew himself up.
Cool.
To accommodate for this...
He monster mashed too hard.
I don't get it. To accommodate for this, they expanded their Playa Vista campus even further to 22 buildings and built a ton of military stuff for the Korean War and later the Vietnam War.
Cool.
Cool. I love those wars.
Cool. Yeah, those are my favorites.
By 1952, they had 15,000 employees, were the 10th biggest defense contract in the U.S. and the largest manufacturer in California. But all this awful and problematic success was not because of Howard Hughes. It was in spite of Howard Hughes.
Yeah.
Howard Hughes was not a great boss. And as the 50s began, he started exhibiting the behavior that he's maybe most famous for. We know his mom had some mental health issues. And from what it sounds like, he had been showing signs of them himself his whole life. But as the 50s began, he started having full-blown symptoms of OCD and paranoia.
Yeah.
This wasn't helped that, like we said in the Beverly Hills Bermuda Triangle thing, he became addicted to painkillers after that crash in 1946.
He almost burned his
he was
junk
dead.
off.
He was dead.
He was dead. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, his junk is burned
junk.
off. The thing he's going to use so much more from now on. To pee in jars only.
What's Ava Gardner going to laugh at now?
He was basically dead, but like he survived and now he's just addicted to painkillers for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
And to make things worse, he had syphilis, which started to eat his brain.
Yeah.
So he started scheduling meetings at weird times of day and weird locations around town and then wouldn't even show up to them.
Yeah.
He started exhibiting extreme germophobia and wouldn't shake hands with people and would fly into a rage when his overly specific instructions weren't followed word for word. On top of all that, he was a pretty corrupt guy. Wouldn't you think? Would you believe it if I were to tell you that?
A famous James Ellroy villain that he uses? Yeah.
So shockingly for a guy who made money selling missiles, he not morally up and up.
He's a rich dude.
Yeah, they're usually good though, right?
Right.
I haven't read a newspaper.
Richie Rich. He's good.
Yeah, he's the best one. Eat the Richie Rich. In 1947, he had been brought in front of a Senate committee to testify about federal charges of stock manipulation and war profiteering against him. He managed to be cleared of all the charges, but this would end up being the last time he was seen in a public forum. He is also believed to have been heavily involved financially with Tricky Dick himself, Richard Nixon, in not entirely legal ways. Supposedly, the 18 and a half missing minutes from the Nixon tapes were when they were talking about Howard Hughes' involvement in the Watergate scandal.
Wow.
Some even go further to say that the entire Watergate break-in was so that Nixon could get information on what the Democrats knew about his history of taking money from Howard Hughes.
Wow.
So he might have been responsible for the corruption of American politics for like the 400th time. That was a little later on, but his overall shadiness and the increasingly unpleasant behavior he exhibited rubbed a lot of the higher ups in the company the wrong way.
Right.
And in 1953, people had finally had enough. First, Romo and Wooldridge, his top two scientists, left the company to start their own company, which then led to Harold C. George resigning from running to the day-to-day things, which led to many others lower down in the chain of command also quitting. It was so bad and posed such a threat to so many government contracts that the Secretary of the Air Force confronted Howard Hughes himself and told him that he had 90 days to fix this or the government is going to cancel all their contracts.
Wow.
His solution was smart and actually good for the world, but also very shady.
Yeah.
What he did was he founded the Howard Hughes Medical Institute, which was a medical research institute with the goal to explore the genesis of life itself.
Okay. All right. Settle down.
We're going to figure out what a germ is.
Yeah.
Because we all want to know.
We're all dying to know, right?
And I have samples. Howard sold his controlling shares in Hughes Aircraft and then donated the company to the Howard Hughes Medical Institute, which was a nonprofit, so the company wouldn't have to pay taxes and all their proceeds would go towards medical research. So basically, his solution was to found a charity to act as a tax dodge for the airplane company.
Cool. Totally normal.
Like I said, it was shady as hell, but the Medical Institute went on to be and continues to be a huge innovator in science and medicine and one of the world's biggest charities.
Again, in spite of Howard Hughes.
In spite of Howard Hughes.
Yeah.
In spite of his best efforts to destroy everything he touches. This wasn't the only company Howard Hughes drove into the ground around this time either. Since 1948, he had owned controlling shares of RKO, which he sold for profit in 1953 and then bought back in 1954 only to sell again in 1955.
Jeez.
Which between all that upheaval and the energy he was bringing to the company, what's that, Grandma?
Candy.
Are you having a sucking candy? Is your throat a little scratchy?
I'm a little sick.
So all the energy he was bringing to the company set them on the path to going out of business just a couple of years later.
Wow.
While he walked away with a massive payday. So he drove RKO into the ground.
Cool.
But for Hughes Aircraft, without Hughes himself involved, things went great. A big part of that was because in 1948, they created a subdivision of the company called Hughes Aerospace Group that focused on the frontier before the final frontier, lightly outer space.
Lightly outer space.
Through them, the entire company started shifting focus less on planes and more on satellites as the decades went on.
Wow.
They developed technology for thermal imaging, night sensors, liquid crystal displays, ion propulsion engines for space travel, the world's first working laser, and many of the first communication and weather satellites were done through Hughes.
Incredible.
Without Howard Hughes involved.
Of course.
In 1963, they launched SYNCOM-2, which was the world's first geosynchronous communication satellite. They also built the Surveyor probes that were sent to the moon between 1966 and 68 in preparation for the One Small Step for Man. In the 70s, they went on to create the technology behind the Landsat program and built the Pioneer Venus orbiter in 1978.
Wow.
Then they did God's work, almost literally, in 1983 when they built the Galaxy 1 satellite, which was what made it possible to have satellite TV all over the United States. Thank you, Howard Hughes.
Thank you, Howard Hughes. I can watch Married with Children now.
It's 1983. Finally, I can watch the first season of Night Court. Then in 1989, they built the atmosphere probe for the Galileo mission to Jupiter, which is cool, but it's not satellite TV.
Yeah.
By 1983, they were the seventh biggest Pentagon contractor, the nation's largest defense electronics contractor, the largest industrial employer in California, and the largest employer, period, in Los Angeles.
Oh my God.
So like a lot of people worked for this company.
Yeah.
And all thanks to using a medical research institute as a tax shelter, which the IRS began to get suspicious of in the early 80s. The pressure was serious enough that in 1985, all of it was sold to GM and the tax shelter days were over. GM restructured it with their own Delco Electronics and became GM Hughes Electronics, which in 1994 gifted the world with DirecTV.
Yay, we did it, everyone.
We did it. Mission accomplished. And from there, it was just corporate shuffling and mumbo jumbo and Melissa's dad working there. In 1997, they merged with Raytheon. And in the year 2000, they were bought by Boeing, which is where things stand with them to this day.
Yeah, well, I briefly worked for a company that I really want to work for. And then Boeing went on strike and I got fired.
That's true. Oh, so you're a hero. You're a war hero now?
Hero?
Yeah.
You're like Nelson Mandela, if he was even real.
If he ever actually died or whatever people are confused about. I was really affected by Howard Hughes' death. I wasn't alive, but I worked for a company that once worked with Boeing.
My dad worked for a company that made mason jars. So I really suffered once he died.
I had jelly once out of a mason jar, so I was really affected when Howard Hughes died. So the Mega Playa Vista campus had been slowly losing its relevance ever since 1953, when their production started dispersing to places like Tucson, El Segundo, LAX, and beautiful Canoga Park.
CP.
And in 1994, the Playa Vista campus was officially closed, but these giant buildings couldn't just sit there unused. Not in Hollywood. They turned them into sound stages where they filmed Titanic, Men in Black, Independence Day, Avatar, Transformers, and Iron Man, the Howard Hughes story. Kind of.
It is. You said Avatar, but my brain was like, they made the Aviator too, but that's a different word.
When I was about to say the Aviator, I was like, no, blue people.
Blue people.
Not
firebenders.
Not boob people.
Yeah.
Blue people.
Blue people.
In 1999, DreamWorks was planning to move in permanently, but it never happened. And by the early 2000s, many of the original buildings had been demolished. In 2010, what was left was bought by the Ratkovich company, who called part of it Runway, which has shops and offices and restaurants.
Please, the Rat family for short.
They changed it to Ratkovich at Scallis Island when they came on Nosferatu's boat. And part of it is the Hercules campus, which is in reference to the Spruce Goose, which is where tech companies make their nests, including Google. Maybe not. I know Nest is like a camera system. They might do that there. Google is housed in the Spruce Goose's hangar right now. Wow. Which is the Spruce Goose of America, of big tech.
Of search engines.
In the Bing campus is, that's in the old hangar in Glendale. 11 of the original buildings remain, and 4 of these are on the National Register of Historic Places, where Google belongs. And that's the end of the Hughes aircraft story, but we can't end this episode without running through the end of the story of Howard Hughes himself. So, as we last left him in this story, it's the mid to late 50s, and he essentially has no part of the Hughes company anymore, but what he does have is a ton of money and a quickly slipping grip on reality.
Yeah.
He was
good combo, Kanye West.
You wait till you see what shoes he designed. He was addicted at this point to morphine, codeine, and Valium, and his OCD was taking control of his behavior. He had detailed instructions about how his food should be prepared so as to make sure it was all as clean as possible, including completely removing the labels off canned food and scrubbing them so that there wasn't any residue from the label.
Wow.
He had arranged the peas on his plate by size before eating them.
And what does the weird stuff start?
So he's like really into molecular gastronomy. Is this just the bear you're describing? There was talk during this time amongst his business associates that they should have him committed. But seemingly in fear of this, in 1957, he married actress Jean Peters. Many think so that rather than his business partners having any sort of power over him, his wife would have to be in charge of having him committed. Then in 1958, he had a full-on nervous breakdown and things got really weird. This was when the hermit days began. The first unbelievable thing he did was that sometime in 1958, he went into a screening room at a studio on Sunset Boulevard. He didn't come back out of it for 4 months.
Wow.
He just sat in there all day and night watching movies naked, surviving off of bottled water, pecans, milk, and Hershey bars that were delivered to him in a brown paper bag, which just sounds like March to June of 2020 to me. Like when I read that, I was like, this guy was way ahead of his time. Maybe he is a genius.
Yeah.
This
is just a Hershey's commercial. Come on.
Hershey is America's chocolate. It's just this like the barbarian monster. So this was also where he famously started peeing in jars and keeping them in a closet. After he got that out of his system, he then went to the Beverly Hills Hotel and locked himself inside of one of the bungalows for, get this, years.
Wow.
He didn't come out for years. The other big one was that he checked into a room in the Desert Inn in Las Vegas and didn't leave his room for 4 years straight. Jeez. It was here, and also I think in the Beverly Hills Hotel, where the really horrific stories about him came out. His germophobia controlled his brain, what was left of it from the syphilis. So the door was sealed shut with tape to keep the germs out. The windows were closed. The curtains were drawn at all times. He'd use Kleenex boxes as shoes. He stopped cutting his hair, beard, and nails. He was 6 feet tall, but he withered down to 120 pounds.
Wow.
He was so constipated from the codeine he was taking, he'd sometimes sit on the toilet for 26 hours straight.
No phones.
No phones. What was he looking at?
What was he reading?
Was he just reading the toothpaste bottle? But even the tube, I guess they're
tubes.
But even through all this, he was still conducting business, which is even crazy.
Yeah.
And he was even richer than before. Like in 1966, he was faced with antitrust charges, but he never showed up to court, so he lost the case and was forced to sell his shares of TWA. But don't worry, they were worth today's equivalent of $5.5 billion.
Oh my God.
Nobody would see him, so he'd either do business by phone or handwritten notes he'd leave outside the door. And
he trusted paper? You know how many germs is on that?
Well, he had to boil it first. He made it out of the walls in the room. And it was totally logical stuff. Like in 1968, he bought it. Like a lot of this stuff it's like Kevin McAllister in Home Alone 2 or Home Alone 1.
Yeah.
the prequel. In 1968, he bought one of the local TV stations in Las Vegas so that they could play the movie Ice Station Zebra whenever he wanted.
Wow.
So he bought the entire station, and he wanted it a lot. They'd play it over and over most nights. Another blockbuster deal he made was to buy 350 gallons of banana nut ice cream from Baskin-Robbins because he was obsessed with it and they were about to discontinue it. So he's like, I need enough for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Then when it all arrived, he decided, I actually like vanilla better.
Oh my God.
So the hotel was forced to give away free ice cream to their customers for a year. Just they didn't know what to do with all of this ice cream. When the hotel's owner threatened to kick him out of the hotel, he bought the entire hotel for $14 million. Then he's like, I like buying hotels. He bought in Las Vegas the Frontier, the Sands, Castaways, the Landmark, the Silver Slipper, as well as 1,000 acres of undeveloped land, the North Las Vegas Airport, and Alamo Airways. He bought all of it. He ended up taking in a third of all the revenue in Las Vegas just because someone wanted to kick him out of his hotel.
Oh my God.
And this, again, was something...
He's got like old king energy.
Yeah. And you know what? Let him cook.
And he's got old king syphilis too.
He's got more than just the energy.
Yeah.
He's got the lifespan of an old king as well.
You're right. Let him cook.
Let him cook. Let's see what he can do.
Yeah.
This was something the Justice Department noticed when they eventually filed a monopoly lawsuit against him. But him owning...
I'm going to buy Monopoly now.
I'm buying all of the monopoly boards in America. And I'll put a hotel on this and this. But him owning so much of Las Vegas was actually instrumental in helping Las Vegas shake its mob-owned reputation.
Wow.
Because now it was Howard Hughes's American Heroes town.
Yeah.
So like it helped the transition of like, this is a shady place. So like, oh, we can bring our family to Las Vegas. Little did they know he was housing the world's finest collection of yellow jars while this was happening.
It's so funny that like, who do you want to own all the stuff? The mob or this crazy guy? How crazy is a crazy guy?
But they have family values.
Yeah.
Around this time, several of his employees were also stealing from him to the tune of $50 million were embezzled from him.
Wow.
So he just gave up on Las Vegas. And in 1970, he was carried out of his room on a stretcher. That's how like weak he was.
Yeah.
And embarked on a nomadic lifestyle, staying in luxury hotels around the world with the windows blacked out, never emerging, rarely being seen. He went to the Bahamas. He went to Nicaragua. He went to Canada. In London, he had a bad fall in his hotel room where he lost his ability to walk and became even more dependent on painkillers. On April 5th, 1976, he had a medical emergency in Acapulco and was rushed onto a plane to Houston to get medical treatment, but he died somewhere in the air on the airplane along the way. Dying on a plane, which he loved being on while heading towards his hometown, is some sort of metaphor, but we don't get paid enough to figure out what it is.
Yeah, we don't get paid enough to write his It's a Wonderful Life ending.
Yeah, I'm not going to write Howard Hughes' obituary. Maybe for $10 a month on Patreon. I'll write your obituary.
I'll do it right now. Howard Hughes' obituary should have been a picture of boobs with a plane crashing into them.
His obituary was 58008.
Nah.
You had to write it. It was written on calculators.
Yeah, which were new at the time.
Yeah.
He bought all of them.
He bought them all. We bought one for everyone in America. Flip them. His dying words. Flip this over. So yeah, that's the aerospace industry in America. But yeah, I keep thinking about like, is he the the Elon Musk? But that's the thing. Elon Musk didn't do anything. Like Elon Musk has no talents.
No.
He was a rich boy who bought his way into already established companies, except for the ones he kind of founded. But like Elon Musk never flew a plane into the ground to test it out.
And agreed. And
both bad people.
Both bad people, yeah. And like both bad people, sure, but
Howard Hughes did a lot of good.
He did.
Elon Musk
even
did
accidentally, yeah.
In spite of himself, the path he set people on did a lot of good.
He also like guy had charm. Like guy had it in the pocket. Whether bad guy had syphilis, but like had charm.
Elon Musk has a lot of babies.
A lot of babies with
and that's a surefire sign of charm.
That's like a manifested charm is babies.
But yeah, just Howard Hughes is a towering figure, and
he really is
in American history, but also in Los Angeles.
And it's the old LA thing. Like he came here and he just made himself into an image that he wanted, and then it corrupted him, completely corrupted him.
It helped though that he came with a lot of money.
Yeah, it certainly, Not everyone does that.
No. In fact, none of them do. So now before we get to our listener question, we have a pre-listener question. A plug.
It's coffee today.
It's why is it so yellow? This yellow stuff is really good.
God. I think I'm going to live forever now.
Is there codeine in this? So we talked about it before. How about you listen to our other podcast that Greg and I have called Candy is Dandy, the Candy Review Podcast, where each episode we pick a different candy, we give its history and review the candy. If you like us,
You're going to like that one. You have to.
you're going to like it. There's a lot. Hey, if you like us joking around and never getting to the point, you're going to love that. But there's also a lot of history and a lot of serious discussion about candy with us and Beto, our friend.
Yeah.
Oh, Greg, Phantom is loving. Phantom just cuddled up onto your stinky jacket to take a nap.
He left my stinky hat to lay on my stinky jacket.
That's ours now, though. Okay.
She can wear it. She looks good in jackets. You don't. Not gonna work for you.
Who's she? Phantom or Melissa?
Well, he's a he. I'm talking about your wife.
Yeah, you see his big dog, right? Dog. Did I say dog?
You said dog. I mean, it's a bit of a dog.
And
he's gonna walk the dog today.
Wait, is this episode self-censoring?
I think it is.
Duck, slit. Yeah, so listen to Candy is Dandy, the Candy Review Podcast.
Yes.
Anywhere you get your podcast, you're going to like it. It's a lot of fun. So now we have our listener question.
Yes.
And this one is from Marco Alejo.
Hi, Marco.
More like Marco Aloha? Is he Ohana with us?
He's Ohana with us, yeah.
You're Ohana now, Marco.
Yeah.
So did your senior or junior proms take place anywhere interesting outside of your schools? I'm also an LA native and went to high school in La Cañada. I had attended my proms at Santa Anita Racetrack,
Wow.
the Universal Backlot, and the
Cool.
Los Angeles Athletic Club.
Brother, those
are
three.
cool. Those are really cool.
All three
I don't know
of
why
them.
you went to 3 proms, but he was held back a few years.
Yeah.
It was technically illegal for him to be at prom. But
He's a teacher, that's why.
I didn't go to prom.
Okay.
I didn't go, but mine was either the Sheraton or the Hilton that's at Universal.
Oh, that's a nice one.
I can't remember which. I'm hoping it was the Hilton.
Yeah.
Because that's a little nicer, I would assume. But yeah, that's where it was, but I didn't go.
Okay. What did you do instead?
My cousin was playing in and
She got invited to your prom, but you didn't.
Cousins can be boys too. Yeah, I went with my cousin. No, my cousin in New York was actually playing in a youth orchestra at Carnegie Hall.
Wow.
And something he wrote was being played.
Wow.
So my dad was going, he's like, I want to go too. So we both just went to that.
That's a lot better.
That's better than prom. That's better than the experience I would have had at prom.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say yeah.
But yeah, I didn't go. But yeah, mine, that's kind of boring. Like next to Universal is cool, but like if you're not going to the back lot or even City Walk, like what's kind of the point? What about you?
My junior prom was at the Friendship Auditorium where every Wednesday they have Breakfast Club meetings. Yeah. And our senior prom was somewhere in it's like some nondescript banquet hall in Long Beach.
Oh, that's boring.
Within sight of the Queen Mary, but wasn't the Queen Mary.
Was the Spruce Goose there, Greg?
It was a really tall wooden hole.
Wait, it was inside the Queen Mary?
No, it was within eyesight of it.
okay.
I remember seeing the Queen Mary, being like, "What's that big ship?" And years later, found out it was the Queen Mary.
And you did just swear, and it censored you again. That's a Freudian ship.
I'm taking a Freudian
That
ship.
Queen's
right
really
now.
hot.
Yeah, she's really hot, and
Freudian ship.
yeah, that's
kind of boring. Like
it was boring.
Santa Anita Racetrack. That's pretty
really cool.
And even like the
Athletic Club. That's
really cool. That's a nice. That's the most boring one, but that's a nice building. But he said like he got to walk around the back lot. Like
that's great.
If
what is
that's
he, Columbo?
That's almost like. And one more thing. Can I have this dance? That sounds more like a grad night thing. Like if prom was more like that, I would have been interested in.
Sure.
But like trying to date a girl, I'm not doing that.
Yeah,
I'll be at Carnegie Hall. How do you get to Carnegie Hall? Skip prom.
Skip prom. That's how.
But yeah, that's where our proms were. So yeah, that's our big American Pride episode.
Yankee Doodle Dandy. That's right. That's us.
Yeah, that's a couple of dandies, a couple of Yankee Doodle dandies. Stuck a feather in our cap. Call this, I don't know, rigatoni.
I left my heart in San Francisco.
I left my hat
in Newark.
I left my hat in that tomb where I was running from the boulder. So yeah, enjoy 4th of July in whatever way you want this year.
Yeah.
Hold on to your pets. The fireworks are coming. They're here,
right.
but it's only going to amp things up.
That's right.
So look, everyone, this is a long episode, so stay safe out there. And hey, we'll see you next time. And that's been yet another episode of LA Meekly.
Ohana Meets Podcast since 2013.
Do you guys listen to
You sound
Karina Longworth?
You sound like a Muppet that they threw in the trash.
I mean, that's kind of how they made Stitch.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye.